I have been waiting 843 days to play a league with this card. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and I finally get to play Creative Technique. This card was released in 2021 in a supplementary Commander product, and it's just now making its way to Magic Online. So, of course, I need to play with it. Shout out to Sean D, who waited very patiently for this league to finally happen. So, what's the game plan? We are going to either cast this card or Cascade into this card, and more on that in a second. You shuffle your library, reveal cards from the top of it until you reveal a non-land card, and then you're going to get to cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. The important part of this is the Demonstrate ability. When you cast this spell, you can copy it, and if you do, your opponent also gets to copy it. So practically what that means within the confines of Legacy is that a single counterspell, such as Force of Will, is not going to stop both copies of Creative Technique, allowing you to combo off in a situation where a lot of other decks just get, bowled over by a single counterspell. There's a decent number of 6-mana cards that have Cascade, and we are going to use those 6-mana cards to cascade into our creative techniques. And as you can see with this one here, like a 6/3 haste body is also pretty relevant. And we're going to try to do this on turn 3 most of the time, because basically all of our lands are going to be soul lands. A lot of them will enter tapped, but we're going to have a ton of them. And we are going to cast some very silly things with creative technique, including something like Apex Devastator, which will then have you cascade 4 times. Yo dog, I heard you liked Cascade, so we put Cascade on your Cascade on your Cascade on your Cascade. And ultimately, we're going to look to cast something like Emrakul, the Aeons Torn, and get an extra turn out of it. And a lot of times we'll literally just kill the opponent on the turn that we cast Creative Technique, but sometimes you might need a second one for some complicated combat math reasons or something. One thing that I'd like to go back to here is that Demonstrate is a May ability. This is not something that you are forced to do. So if you end up in a situation where you are very ahead and you are deterministically already going to win the game, you can just not demonstrate, because your opponent could randomly flip something, like a Hate Bear or a Teferi or something that could mess up your combo, so you want to give them as few opportunities to get something of their own as you can. I will just be referring to this deck as Creative Technique. You might also hear this deck referred to as Mississippi River, and the reason for that is some people haven't gotten the memo that it is a bad idea to have non-descriptive deck names. I will die on this hill. Anyway, this video is sponsored by both Moxfield.com and Cool Stuff Inc., and if you need some paper magic cards to finish this deck, use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order at Cool Stuff Inc. So I mentioned that we're going to have a whole bunch of soul lands. Some of these are going to be a little shameful by Legacy standards, but when we have a win at either 5 or 6 mana relatively consistently, that doesn't so much matter. We've pretty much covered the stuff that's in the main deck here, although I'm just going to quickly hover over some of these cards, as they are very much not typically played Legacy cards. I do want to mention one thing out of the sideboard, and that's Throes of Chaos. This is a little bit of a strange card. It has Cascade, but you cascade into smaller things, right? Not bigger things. So what Throes of Chaos does is it cascades into Tybalt's Trickery, and then Tybalt's Trickery goes and counters the Throes of Chaos, and then you go and you start your combo that way. And the reason you have these cards in the deck is sometimes getting to 5 or 6 mana just does not race what your opponent is doing. So for example, you might have trouble racing a Doomsday deck or a Storm deck. So this is what you can do to go faster. One of the things that you have to keep in mind for the whole creative technique, deck building, and the Cascade stuff is that the answers you play to stuff have to have a very high converted mana cost. And so we are going to be playing some pretty strange stuff to make up for that. With that being said, let's battle. Okay, looks like we had an update. I had to reset some settings. This hand has 2 copies of Creative Technique in it. I can just hard cast those in a couple of turns. This is fine. I guess as of right now, one of the biggest things I'm afraid of is a Wasteland on my Sandstone Needle. I might actually lead on Ancient Tomb rather than Sandstone Needle. Alright, so we are looking like we're playing against a blue deck here. Now that I have 2 different red producing tapped lands, I might want to just lead on one. I'll just lead on one. This one's a little bit worse. This is a sacrifice land. Still gonna lead. I'm still gonna play Sandstone Needle on turn 2. I'm trying to get to 5 mana rather than 6. Oh no. That's an Atraxa. So things are gonna get a little spicy. Revealing 10 cards. Alright, so they got Delta, Entomb, Petal, Atraxa, Reanimate. Yep. Now they can Entomb, Reanimate for another thing. Well, they're going Atraxa again. So that legend rules. They get to keep the non-animate deaded one, so that I can't potentially Boseiju that. They will be picking up a Force of Will. More importantly, a Grief. I don't care about a single removal spell, or sorry, like a single discard spell, but I do care about 2. I have 2 copies of Creative Technique here. Yeah. So I am going to eat Thoughtseize and Grief and be in a relatively bad spot. Maybe not dead, but bad spot. Yep. So one kind of rough thing here is 2 of the 4 copies of Creative Technique are currently in my graveyard, which is certainly not the best. All right, I eat 7 damage. Here's another Thoughtseize. And we're just living off the top. Negative. I guess I have another draw step. The Ancient Tomb life loss probably doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll play this land out. If I play City of Traders next turn, I can play around like a double daze or something, countering one of my spells. There is also some risk that my opponent can just hit spicy cards, such as Grizzlebrand, off Creative Technique. I can make blue mana. The City of Traders turn, maybe? I'll just play a Boseiju. So this is how I get my blue. I'll take the 2. I'll send that back to hand so I don't die. I technically have a Boseiju available, but it's rough to use it. Alright. Bad things are happening. An Archon of Cruelty. Oh, is it not happening this turn? It's maybe happening this turn. It's not happening this turn. Cool. That's life total spooky. Come on, deck. Damn it. Well, we've been quite live for a few turns. There's a hardcast Grief, meaning that tapping the Ancient Tomb is off the table. But I get another draw. That's a cruel joke. Yeah, I can make 9 mana this turn. None of it is blue. Do I have any untapped blue sources in this mana base? another Otawara, technically, is what I'm looking at. Okay, there's also a volcanic island. I'm going to play this land, I think. It's very possible that extra mana is more important than Otawara bounce next turn. I think the reality of this is I'm probably just dead to an Archon of Cruelty trigger, and the decision doesn't matter. But my opponent has a lot of cards they're not casting, so the better I get at playing around soft counter spells such as Spell Pierce and Daze, the better. Or we can flood out. And that's a tapped blue land. I wouldn't have been able to Otawara anyway. GG. Okay, so what am I doing here in terms of sideboarding? If I want to get faster, I can Throes of Chaos. But getting faster means that my opponent's counter spells get better against me, so I'm not sure that I actually want to do that. I might just, like, board in Caracas and call that good. I am the starting player here. I can probably just board out Gemstone Cavern for 2 copies of Caracas and be okay with that. I could board in some turtles to just have a way to bounce opposing creatures. But this deck definitely feels like the more things you board in, the worse your combo turns get. So for example, if I Creative Technique into a turtle, I'm not nearly as excited about that as whatever I would be taking out. I think that's the only changes that I'm making. This is fine. This is turn 3. I do the thing through a piece of discard. Alright, let's see if my opponent just goes off on turn 1. Nice. I'm actually very happy to draw a depletion counter land, because these have to just be sacrificed, whereas you get 2 shots out of depletion lands. Alright. This could be like a show and tell situation. It is a show and tell situation. I will probably just put in a land. Alright, there's a Traxa from my opponent. We're hoping to not see Grief. We did not see Grief. Oh wow, opponent's on some old tech of Arcane Artisan. Alright, good stuff. The life loss seems fine as of right now. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boarding party. Cascade into Creative Technique. I will demonstrate it so that I beat a single counter spell. My opponent reveals Echoing Truth. So now I will start doing the thing. Alright, there's a Force of Negation pitching Echoing Truth to one of them. Oh wow, opponent has double force, double blue card back up there. We'll try again next turn. We're now vulnerable to a discard spell, though. We take 7. Our opponent gains 7. This creature doesn't tap, so boarding party doesn't get to rumble. Okay, Thoughtseize takes my enabler, which is pretty bad. And I'm fully just living off the top. I don't know if we're going to be good versus counterspell plus discard decks. This is feeling rough. Alright. I'm just going to get pummeled. I have to draw something relevant on my next turn, or I am just dead on board. I guess if I cast the spider and the spider resolves and both copies of Creative Technique don't resolve, I get to block and have one more turn. But I was rationalizing that like the haste creature matters more if I do end up getting a spider afterwards to put the extra counters on this. I get an attack this turn, whereas I wouldn't otherwise. Alright, there's a fetch to clear. And a Douthie Voidwalker. Not the biggest of deals. Yeah, I have 9 lands to my name, and no other action. We're dead. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is, in my opinion, the best Magic the Gathering website for hosting your deck lists online. One of my favorite features is that you can create your own custom tags for when you're deck building, So let's say you're building a commander deck and you want to know, hey, how many copy effects do I have? You can just create a tag and sort everything. And there's fun little hotkeys so that you can do this more quickly. So really, please consider checking them out if you are looking to tinker with deck lists online. All right, we will be keeping this hand. We have 2 different things that allow us to go off on turn 3, so we're not soft to a single piece of discard, for example. Okay. We're just going to get another round of discard plus counterspells. Noted. I'm going to play a non-red one of these first, so if my opponent is something like Delver, I give them a chance to wasteland this rather than one of the red ones. Maybe that's wrong since I have 2 red ones. And I'm just not giving myself a better opportunity to cast a spider later. My opponent thought for a long time and then played a tapped Watery Grave. So we'll play another depletion land past the turn and attempt to cast Boarding Party next turn. Alright, we got a fetch land. Be like a Sauron's Ransom? What are we doing? Or is it just Doomsday? Okay, it is just Doomsday. The Watery Grave may be Underground Sea number 5, or alternatively, this is like a tempo Doomsday build that might have some things like Death Shadow or Murktide Regent in them as well. Alright, my opponent goes to 8 here, and now things get a little interesting, because I'm going to get to decide whether or not I demonstrate off of Boarding Party. Boarding Party itself doesn't kill in one shot. So giving my opponent a spell here, in theory, in the absolute weirdest timeline, could mean that they get like Thassa's Oracle, double cycle, and I die. My creative technique without demonstrate is not good enough to beat Force of Will. If I don't demonstrate, they Force of Will this, go to 2, and I could very, very easily die. So I think I am supposed to demonstrate. I guess I can look at this. Force. Oh, there's the Oracle. Force. 3 Force of Wills visible. 1 Daze visible. Yeah, I will demonstrate. I could take more time to try to figure out exactly what the pile is, but I want to keep this show moving. Okay, they have revealed Edge of Autumn. That is going to shuffle their library. And they failed to find a land. Alright, it's happening. Alright, so I cast Maelstrom Wanderer. I'm going to get a lot of Cascades. At this point, I probably will not be interested in demonstrating anymore. We'll just cast this normally and not demonstrate. Or you can daze that one. We'll put some counters on our creature. We'll Cascade again. I hit a new creative technique. Will not demonstrate. I'll hit a new Maelstrom Wanderer. Hit a Boarding Party. And my opponent knows that they are dead. We now have very, very much lethal damage even through another counterspell. So Doomsday is a deck that I might need to race, but again, against these blue-black decks in particular, it's a little tough. Because I open myself up to Daze and Force of Will if I try to go the Throes of Chaos route. I'm not sure that I'm actually supposed to do that. I think I am interested in the Crab, though. Because this can counter a Thassa's Oracle trigger. Let's board this in. What is expendable? I don't know that the extra turn is necessary. But I don't know that I want to cut any of my double Cascade hits. I don't know. Maybe for the game that I'm on the draw, I do need to play Throes of Chaos. Like, it does have retrace, so you can just try again. Yeah, I think for the game that I'm on the draw, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I won't play the Crabs on the draw. I'll play them on the play. And I probably just board down a couple of lands. Like Boseiju doesn't seem particularly important. Neither does Otawara. Yeah, this hand is quite good. Just in case you've never played with Gemstone Caverns, it's very good when you're on the draw. We will Gemstone Caverns and Shouldn't need the blue depletion land here. This is going to let us turn 2 around days. All right, cool. So we will go depletion land here and pass the turn. There's an end of turn brainstorm to just smooth out the hand. Let's see if my opponent has like a ritual to just doomsday immediately. Well, they at least require more setup. Okay, it is a duress on me, which takes my Throes of Chaos. But again, it has retrace, so I can cast it from my graveyard by discarding a land, and I will have additional lands to try that. Ooh, is Boarding Party better? Boarding Party feels better, because it's like... Oh no, I can't get to 6 mana, I can only get to 5 mana this turn. Question answered. But both of these enter tapped. Either one of these casts Boarding Party on ETB. I'll probably keep the Needle. Alright, so we Cascade. Cast Tybalt's Trickery and target my Throes of Chaos. Alright, so I will now cast Boarding Party without paying its mana cost. It has gotten me into a creative technique. I will demonstrate here, because I'm not worried about my opponent just blowing me out and killing me. I'm more worried about counterspells that my opponent has sandbagged. A Dark Ritual. Alright, so we're going. Alright, so I Throes of Chaos. Gets me into another Tybalt's Trickery. I will counter my Sweet Gum. Cast Maelstrom Wanderer. And at this point, things are probably pretty safe. I guess, like, Mindbreak Trap could happen. Outside of that, we're probably good. Am I good to just not demonstrate? Not yet. I need just a tiny bit more damage. Yeah, you can have a Street Wraith, that's fine. You can have that. Alright. I think I can say no with a creative technique on the stack here. I don't actually want to cast that, right? Well, I guess I just Cascade into nothing and then just put that in my graveyard so I can't hit it later. I don't want it later. So that clears, and then the rest of these start clearing. Alright, good stuff. So we will just kind of continue this chain. I will not demonstrate. And at this point, we'll pretty much just clear the stack and kill my opponent. I have 3 creatures of mine that entered the battlefield this turn. Yet another pirate. Now all my creatures have haste. One of the Maelstrom Wanderers. I guess there's no harm in creative techniquing into another. And then, I don't know, like, let's turn like 40 power sideways. And we win the match. GG. Okay, this is sort of an interesting hand in that we have double Gemstone Caverns, and in theory could go incredibly quickly, but I have no Cascade spell, and I'm not willing to keep a hand that does not have a Cascade spell. Okay. This hand has 3 Cascade spells as well as a creative technique. I'll go down to 2 Cascade spells if I throw this back. I have like 42 lands in the deck. I think this is fine to keep, and I just trust the deck to give me mana. More blue deck. Gemstone Caverns is late to the party. I think I'm just going to try to disguise my deck as much as possible by making this land drop. I don't want to play out Crystal Vein. Maybe that's not true. Probably playing against an Orcish Bowmaster's deck. So this turn I have to play out Crystal Vein if I want to attempt to creative technique next turn if I rip an untapped land. It's weird that I drew so many untapped lands. Yeah, there's the Bowmasters. But this is our 3rd blue-black deck in a row. And again, like discard plus counterspells, especially discard plus counterspells plus Wasteland, potentially, is really scary. That's a tapped land. Not really what I want. I'll have more than enough mana next turn. Lim-Duel's Vault. This is an unusual tutor effect / pseudo cantrip. Right, my opponent paid life once and then found some stuff that's good enough. Limduel's Vault is not incredibly common right now. Okay, we're playing against like maybe a blue-black reanimator sort of card. Things could get weird, like literally right now. Okay, good. All right, I take 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I don't play around days, I could do like a boarding party. If I do a 6-mana 1 this turn and sacrifice Crystal Vein, I can still do a 5-mana 1 next turn. Yeah, so I think I do a 6-mana 1 this turn. I don't need blue in play. So let's just play like a Boseiju. And notably here, things can get a little spicy. We Cascade into our creative technique. I 100% demonstrate it. But again, things can get weird. So I copy. My opponent's thing resolves first, and they could randomly get like a Grizzlebrand or something. They've got an Vesuvian Drifter. That is fine. You get that. And then hopefully I do some gross things and win the game, and everything is cool. I do think I still need to demonstrate. There's a Limduel's Vault, which probably doesn't do much, because there's a shuffle before this. It matters if my opponent can... No, it doesn't matter, right? Like, they can't brainstorm to draw a card or anything. So we will boarding party. Hit a creative technique. I think I do. I want to hit Flusterstorm. Was not expecting that main deck. That's pretty bad. Although the creatures that I have straight up might just beat my opponent. Whee! Whee! Alright, so we've used all our creative techniques now, so some of the Cascades are going to be a little bit less spicy. And it's just like the real big stuff like Apex Devastator that is going to continue to hit things. But we're chaining spells, folks. We're chaining spells. Cool. So again, this becomes a game of, do I want to try to go faster when it opens me up to counter spells? Probably. Oseiju's not super important here. I'm going to sub that for Caracas. This is sort of weird from here. Probably board out lands rather than spells here. Like, I want the Emrakul this time, for example. I'm on the draw, so Gemstone Caverns is super reasonable. I think I just want as many soul lands in the deck as possible. Like, despite the fact that this can do relevant work. Okay. The Hands of Keep. I have to think about it for a second. This is just turn 1 Throes of Chaos, right? That's probably pretty good. I think I get rid of Maelstrom Wanderer and City of Traders. Ooh, this is legendary. Okay, it's a turn 2 hand then. It's the first time I've actually had multiple Gemstone Caverns in my hand ever. Okay, I'm actually very happy with that draw. Bam. If my opponent has like a Lotus Petal or a Soul land, they can do something pretty impressive this turn. Alright, there's the Lotus Petal. There's Vesuvian Drifter. This is just a naked Vesuvian Drifter, so it's probably not doing anything cool here. Cool. So creative technique is better versus counterspells, so that is what I will be doing here. I get my red from Gemstone Caverns. I guess we could have a conversation about like City versus Ancient Tomb. Alright, my opponent hit Show and Tell. Okay. I will put in Maelstrom Wanderer. They put in Grizzlebrand. So things can get weird. Oh, things aren't getting weird. Alright. So I am probably supposed to demonstrate these still, because my opponent can just draw a whole bunch of cards with Grizzlebrand. There's another Grizzlebrand. You may cast your other Grizzlebrand. And I just need more copies so that I'm not just dead to my opponent drawing 14, hitting 2 counterspells, and doing crazy shit. I don't think my opponent played that one well. Like, they have a Grizzlebrand on board and 19 life. I think they missed their window to beat me. I have no payoff card here, so this is an automatic mulligan. This is fine. I'll pitch the redundant copy of Otawara. More blue-black decks. A lot of variety in Legacy right now. All right, Needle Pass. So are we Delvering? Are we Doomsdaying? Reanimating? Are we Storming? We are Storming. JK, we are Doomsdaying. Doomsday on the play races this hand, whereas Doomsday on the draw wouldn't have. That is an immediate brainstorm, which is concerning. I can die this turn if my opponent has a Street Wraith. Okay, there's Street Wraith. This will be crack for triple blue. My opponent will consider, mill a card, and then Thassa's Oracle. For sure you can Street Wraith first to make it 100% safe. Yeah, that was brutal. So I think I am interested in Throes of Chaos, Tybalt's Trickery. And I'm well, I think I decided when I'm on the play I don't want the crab. I wonder if it's crazy to play Maddening Hex. Just side note. As just a technically playable turn 2 thing that makes Doomsday scary. The cycling lines probably mean that I'm not supposed to do that. But when I'm on the play, Gemstone Caverns is not interesting. And then I'll board out like one other random land. All right, this is a turn 3 on the play. Am I fine with that? Or do I want to try to go for the turn 2? So this is turn 3 that beats 1 counterspell. I would mulligan this on the draw, but I will keep this on the play. My opponent mulliganed so incredibly deeply here. Like, I wonder if they were just trying to get the turn 1. All right, there's a Delta. Personal Tutor. All right, so they are not going to get turn 1. But they could turn 2 me. Let's do the green depletion counter land here. That way, if I draw a Spider in my next 2 draw steps, that ends up being castable. Doomsday is perfectly fine here, although slightly weird. I can see my opponent hovering over their graveyard. They're choosing a Street Wraith for their pile. All right, they go down to 8. So they will pretty easily die to just a couple critters hitting them. Let's boarding party. Cast Creative Technique. I probably have to demonstrate exactly once. They have revealed Thassa's Oracle. They cast. And that just gives them a blocker. Okay, so I will Throes of Chaos, Cascade. I will Tybalt's Trickery. The Throes of Chaos. Hit a Creative Technique. At this point, I don't think I need to demonstrate. I start running into Thassa's Oracle. Okay, yeah, my opponent's done. Like hitting a second Thassa's Oracle opponent having 4 devotion. Okay, so I want to change when I'm on the draw. I want Gemstone Caverns and I want Otawara back in here as another blue source, and then I want Mearshell Crab as something that can disrupt a kill. Probably board out a couple of lands. I probably don't need the extra turn here. Boarding in the Mearshell Crabs with Throne of Chaos is Throes of Chaos is weird though, because like I can Throes of Chaos, Tybalt's Trickery, and then just accidentally get Mearshell Crab sometimes. So that's a thing. Like, is that a scary enough thing that I don't do this exact plan? Probably not, but Tinder Farms can go out. Maybe 1 Sulfur Vent after that. I don't know, getting rid of blue sources is a little annoying if I'm trying to rely on Crab as a plan. 1 Dwarven Ruins. Oh god, I still need 2 more cuts. Maybe an Apex Devastator. 2nd Dwarven Ruins. Again, not really sure. I might just be over sideboarding. This is a turn 3 on the draw. I don't think that's fast enough. That's a crab. I think I am willing to keep this, assuming that I will draw into one of my Gajillion spells that does something over 3 or 4 draw steps. Throw the Maelstrom Wanderer back into the deck. I will Gemstone Caverns, discarding the blue tapped land. I already have my 1 blue from Gemstone Caverns. Ooh. Obviously, my hand is significantly weaker now. My hand's great. This will be... It's actually interesting. I do a depletion land this turn. I can play around Days next turn by playing City of Traders. I think I'm into that. Are you going now? You're going now. Hopefully I'm not just dead now. Oof, my opponent's casting a Brainstorm, which means I'm dead to the LED Street Wraith baseline that we saw in a previous game. Yep. Oh, it's Cycle Double Street Wraith this time. It's a slightly different line. Alright, yeah, there's Consider and Oracle lands. Yeah, I don't think I want to be playing against blue-black decks all day playing this. Like, this might be a fine deck, and this is just, like, the absolute wrong fucking time to be playing it. Alright, we are probably playing against Death and Taxes here. My opponent has revealed a Yorion. Turn 1 tapped Dwarven Ruins. Turn 2 some land. Turn 3 Creative Technique is fine. I'm a little sad that these are both sack lands, as it makes trying a second time much harder. But I'm not really sure that I'm supposed to mulligan. Like, there's also just worlds where I don't even end up sacrificing this specific land. I'm most scared of an Aether Vial here because it makes Rishadan Port noticeably better. Let's get another tapped land just out of the way here. And let's see how bad this gets. There's all sorts of Hate Bearers and Wasteland and stuff that can happen. So we will just Hickory Woodlot and pass. And we're definitely afraid of a Thalia here. Wasteland's very annoying as well. Thalia as well. Thalia as well. This game has basically gone every worst case scenario in a row, right? Like turn 1 Vial is the worst. Wasteland is the worst. Wasteland plus Thalia is the worst after that. So we've probably just lost this game. And it probably only gets worse from here. Like, I guess Sanctum Prelate isn't super popular anymore. So there's that. Oh, am I getting Draw Step Flicker Wisped? I'm not. Opponent's got something they're thinking about. I can cast a Creative Technique this turn and try to just make 2 large-ish creatures. Or no, I can't do that. Thalia attacks. Yeah, so Caverns pass. Alright. A Recruiter of the Guard. This is kind of the point where my opponent's specific list matters for how bad this is going to be. Oh, it's just Stoneforge Mystic. Like, that certainly could have been worse. Ooh, am I lucking out and ending up in a no land drop situation? No, I am not. Sure. There's a Cauldra. Is this my turn? Like, do I just have to cast Creative Technique, hope to hit some decent sized creatures that will beat my opponent? Or I guess... Is it better to Boarding Party? Or Phoenix, for that matter? As my starting point, because Creative Technique also costs 6. For 6 mana with Creative Technique, I get 2 random things, which may or may not cost me extra mana. The Apex Devastator is in hand already, as is 1 Maelstrom Wanderer. The 1/5/3 might be better than 2 random cards. Blockers, like random flying blockers like Flicker Wisp, are such a thing. Alright. Sack. Sack. At least 5. I think this is better if I get a little lucky and hit a Maelstrom Wanderer. My opponent got a Batterskull. I cascade into Boarding Party, which cascades into Creative Technique, which I will cast using my one thing. Orcish Bowmasters, a black splash build. Alright. There's Maelstrom Wanderer. Cast Boarding Party. I no longer can cast this. I cannot pay the 1. Recluse is solid. Gives me some extra power. Can't cast that creative technique. Go on 2 bodies here. Oh, yeah. That was a good hit. And I've still got 1 left. Got more gas in the tank. Maelstrom Wanderer hits a Phoenix. No on that. No on creative technique. Maelstrom Wanderer resolves. I keep 1. I go to combat. I have an Emrakul. A Solitude. Sure. That targets the Maelstrom Wanderer, so my stuff does not have haste. But this is still an attack for 15. My opponent goes to 5. I get an extra turn, though. So, yeah. Good stuff. So what do I want here? If I'm really worried about mana, I can throw a Chaos into Tybalt's Trickery to try to go under a Thalia, which is probably fine in this matchup. I will probably board in Caracas over some other land. There's like 2 bad ones of these, right? Yeah, these are not necessary. So let's Caracas in there. I'm still a little uncertain about how exactly I am supposed to sideboard. I also just have to worry about like my opponent just playing a turn 2 Canonist or a turn 1 Deafening Silence. Yeah, turn 1 Deafening Silence is rough. Maybe I need... No, that bounces a creature. I guess I just have to lean on Otawara for Deafening Silence in particular. Not the biggest fan of that. Yeah, this matchup does just kind of feel like if my opponent has Deafening Silence, I probably lose. Take that Emrakul out. I'm going to leave all the regular creatures board out. A few lands. I am definitely uncertain which lands those are supposed to be, because like the colored symbols do matter. I'm supposed to, I think, keep Gemstone Caverns when I am on the play. No. Also no. That's 14 cards without seeing any Cascade card. Wow, this hand's horrible. I'm going to be keeping it. I don't think it's worth going to 4, but I'm quite reliant on the top of the library. But I have answers to like Deafening Silence and such. Drawing a second Otawara means that I play the first one here, and hopefully I just get a red soul land to still turn 3. Yep, Thalia is good. This is why I didn't show Caracas, by the way. Now I can just play this out and then bounce Thalia at their end of turn. I think I do take the hit for 2, so they can't immediately just recast her. Force them to do something else with their mana. Sure, get your black. Recruiter's good. Finding Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. Bounce Thalia. Need a red land. Did not find a red land. There's some timelines where I'm supposed to play City of Traders here. Not going to do that. It's like the difference between being able to cast some spells and not if I draw, I think, like exactly Volcanic Island. There's a Cauldra, there's a Mother of Runes. Sure. Alright, we'll go to my turn. Red source, not red source. Also notably not green source to just hardcast this. Do I have untapped green sources? I have Boseiju. This might be the turn where I play City of Traders. I think I am Otawara-ing a Germ token while leaving Caracas up. Okay. Yep. 5/5 doesn't scare me. Bounce Germ, only take 1 here. It is perfectly fine. Still got a bounce spell for Athalia. Sure. Now I have used my Otawara, so Sure, that's fine. If my opponent goes and plays, you know, an Aether Sworn Canonist or something like that, life gets a little harder for me. Tapped red land punishes City of Traders being played out. Okay. I mean, I still just have to do it. I think it was correct. Okay, sure. That puts me to 14. Or it's very bad. That's a frustrating top deck after, like, especially after just losing City. Yep. Okay, I mean, that helps. This probably gets me there next turn. Minus another Rishadan Port or Wasteland. I'm not facing down lethal. Probably taking half of my life total this turn. Now this is 7 with Mother of Runes back up, and it also gives my opponent a little bit of extra bonus life. God damn it. That's frustrating. Sure. Flicker Wisp is a choice. Don't think I agree with that. There's Flash, but I don't have green. I think I'm just dead. Yeah, don't have red mana to cast this or anything. Yep, I am dead. That's super unfortunate. So I'm going to be on the play, which means Gemstone Caverns is largely just worse than some of these other lands. Get some bonus blue sources back in here. Then maybe one more Dwarven Ruins. That gets us back to 60. This is no red mana. Auto Mulligan. This is also no red mana. Do I have Spider? I'm so bad versus Wasteland and Port and even Deafening Silence keeping this hand. In order to turn 3, I need to draw a soul land on turn 2 or a red land. With 42 lands in my deck, that's very doable. The second creative technique doesn't really do much in hand. I probably throw that back. I don't feel good about this. It has an Otawara for if my opponent Deafening Silences. So I guess. But, like, this doesn't feel good. And is, like, not going to go under Athalia. I guess some amount of the time I can ambush Athalia with a 6-mana spider. Thoughtseize. Yep, you can have your choice of the spider or the creative technique. They do different things. Creative technique is going unsurprisingly. Like, if I luck into an untapped land, playing this is correct, but if my opponent wastelands or ports me, like, playing this is a disaster. So let's see what my opponent does. Nothing. I will play City of Traders. It's definitely awkward, though, because, like, I don't want to play this until the last possible moment because of things like Rishadan Port and Wasteland, and, like, just how awful this play is when that happens. Bowmasters is fine. Also, if my opponent just has another Thoughtseize and I lose this, life's real bad if I, like, draw red lands afterwards. Alright, I'll eat 2 going to 17. See what my opponent's follow-up is. Thalia. Yeah, there's something that has punished City of Traders being played out. Like, drawing the second auto. This mana is so awkward. Like, I can Otawara Athalia out of play at their end of turn, but then I don't have 6 guaranteed mana for the Recluse. Oh, this deck is so awkward. I think I'm going to do a Needle. Not bounce Thalia now, because, like, my opponent can just replay it. But this line is so bad versus Wasteland and Port as top decks. Or my opponent could still just have them in hand. I'm at 13. Okay, so Flicker Wisp on Bowmasters. Just net some additional damage for the future. That's fine. Okay, so this isn't bad. The next turn I will have 2, 4, 6, 7 mana, which should be plenty to combo off. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fine to take the hit. Got a 4. We'll see if this is good enough. This does have to use multiple depletion counters, unfortunately. Thalia is out of play. All right. let's attempt to do the thing. We unfortunately can't just hardcast Apex Devastator. We're a little short of that. We have 7, and the center's tapped. All right, we Cascade. Oh, I hit the Tybalt's Trickery, so we Tybalt's Trickery this. Okay, we hit Maelstrom Wanderer, which is great. Gonna give us some extra gas. There's a creative technique we will be demonstrating. Awkward things can happen sometimes, but I think I need the gas. Wow, Mindbreak Trap. What have I cast this turn? Oh, what's the wording on creative technique? You have to do it immediately, right? So if they did not Mindbreak Trap, I'm just good. Oh, Tybalt's Trickery, the Throes of Chaos. There's another Maelstrom Wanderer. Notably, it is legendary, which is a little awkward versus Caracas. We'll creative technique. Yes. My Maelstrom Wanderer, like, I don't actually represent damage here. Lion Sash is fine. Cast this. I'll cast that so it goes to my graveyard. Cast a Phoenix. Cast a creative technique. I think I'm past the point where I demonstrate. There's a Recluse. Put some counters on things. Yep. Cast. Right, Maelstrom Wanderer hits play. Creative technique hits a boarding party. Cascade hits another one. Keep one of these. Go to combat. My opponent should bounce my Maelstrom Wanderer. Alright, they did. Now this is interesting. I have 3 blockers back, which is probably enough to survive this stuff. But Orcish Bowmasters is a thing. My opponent Orcish Bowmasters me, they go to 3. They need to block 1. Okay, no, I think I'm okay. Alright, shove. Alright. And we end up with a 3-2. I don't really feel great about that 3-2. Huh. So my opponent in the last round there just like did not cast, what was it, like a Batterskull and some other card and a Mindbreak Trap off creative technique. Maybe they just haven't played against it before. And I don't know that I win that last round without my opponent making that mistake, unless I'm just like massively misunderstanding this card. But I don't think I am. And if Legacy is as blue-black heavy as this league seems to indicate, I don't know that I want to play this deck right now in a world of just like counter spells and a discard and maybe also Wasteland all happening at the same time. Didn't feel super in control of my wins and losses today. Like there's small optimizations to be done in terms of which land drop do you make when, and like those decisions definitely matter. But I don't know. I feel maybe we got unlucky in pairings today. And like maybe I would have a more positive outlook if we just like played against elves or something where they have very few ways to actually interact with what I'm doing, and just turn 3 is fast enough. But against my Doomsday opponents, turn 3 wasn't necessarily fast enough. And I was definitely sweating it versus Death and Taxes too. Like my opponent didn't just open up on Deafening Silence, but if they had Deafening Silence, like it becomes incredibly difficult for me to win the game. And if people are playing Mindbreak Trap because like Mind's Desire got unbanned and this deck is running around, I might hit a lot of collateral damage with this one. So like doing the thing was fun. I would do the thing again for sure, but I'm not super impressed by this deck after my first outing with it. Let me know in the comments below what your impressions of this deck are, especially if you've been playing with or against it pretty regularly. With that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and if you need paper Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. See ya!